guys, so today we're going to make our first cut on the Lead 1010 Plasma add-on. To get started, we're going to jump into the OpenBuilds control program, so let's get into it. All right, so the first thing we want to do is go ahead and download control. If you don't have it, you can navigate over to the OpenBuilds website, openbuilds.com, go to the software, and you have a free download for control right here. Make sure you get the latest version. And then you want to go ahead and open control. Install it and open it. If you already have it installed, go ahead and open it up and make sure that you are running the latest version. It may go ahead and start downloading the latest version. Let it go ahead and do that. And then first thing you want to do is turn power onto the machine, which we have. And now we're going to plug in our USB. And when you plug in the USB, you should see the COM port come up. Go ahead and hit connect. And you'll see it loads parameters and it connects to the machine. Everything looks good. You want to go over to the Gerbil settings tab here. If you've already been using this as a Lead 1010 machine, your profile on the black box will be OpenBuilds Lead 1010. You want to open this up and pick the OpenBuilds Lead machine. And then over here on the sub menu, you should see OpenBuilds Lead 1010 Plasma add-on. Go ahead and click that. If you don't see that, you want to make sure again that you're running the latest version of control. Once that loads up, there'll be some new additional parameters that need to be saved to the black box. So up here, click Save to Firmware. It'll flash this right to the black box. You only have to do this one time, and it'll ask you if you want to do a reset. Click Yes. Okay, so once it does a reset, everything looks good there. We're going to go ahead and click on the Troubleshooting tab. And what we're going to do on this step is we're going to go through and just test all of our limits, including our probe, to make sure that they're all working. So I'm going to walk around the machine. I'm going to click each one. You will see an alarm come up, and it'll say there's been an alarm state. That's fine. You can look in the background and you'll still see that it's being triggered on these X, Y, and Z limits here. So I'll start with the probe first. And you can see the probe is turning red, so we know it's triggering. It's not a limit, it's a probe, so it doesn't set off an alarm. I'm going to go over here to the X. That sets the alarm off, but if you hold it in, you can see in the background that it's being triggered. Go over here to the Y. I'm just holding it in, and you can see on the screen it's being triggered. And last but not least, we'll do the Z. Hold that in, make sure it's being triggered. Okay, so if they're all triggering, we're good to go. We'll move on. Go ahead and clear the alarm. We'll go back to the Machine Control tab at the top. Okay, so on this step, we're trying to figure out if all of our axes are moving in the correct direction. So what we're going to do is turn on continuous jog mode right here. Make sure that's enabled. And we're going to go through and just use our jog keys here, but we're just going to tap them to make sure that we are moving in the right direction. So general rule of thumb is the front left of the machine is 0, 0 if you're standing in front of it. So anything that you jog out away from that front left corner is into the positive, and anything you jog back towards the front left corner is going to go into the negative, with the exception of the Z. Before we jog, we want to go over here and make sure we hit this set 0. So that sets all the DROs, digital readouts here, to 0 on X, Y, and Z. And then we want to go ahead and we're just going to bump Y one time and see what direction it went in. Y negative, the machine should be coming towards the front. Y positive, it should be going towards the back. Let's do X plus, it should be going to the right. And it should be going into the positive, which it is. X negative should be going towards me, which it is. That looks good. Let me set that all to 0 again. And then the Z plus, if I bump it up, should be going into the positive, which it is, and down, it's going down into the negative. So that's good. So now we know that everything is set up correctly. Just so you know, if it wasn't, if one of these was not jogging in the right direction, you can go to Gerbil settings and you can actually flip it right here on your X, Y, Z step direction. So if you had to, you could do that. But of course, if you do that, you are going to have to save again. So if I was to flip X here, you can see the save button comes up and it's going to tell me, hey, you got to resave that to the black box if you want me to listen to that. But I don't need to do that. So going back to the Machine Control tab, our machine is set up. Again, we're on 0, 0, 0 on the DRO. For the next procedure, we're going to go through and we're going to home the machine. It's this one that looks like the house up here. It says home all. Now for this, we want to make sure again that we're running in the right direction, because home can home in different directions as well. So we want to make sure that when we hit home, the whole machine just starts moving towards all of the limit switches. The Z will come up and it will trigger that limit switch. The Y will move back towards the back limit switch, and the X will move simultaneously towards this limit switch on the left. And that's how it should be moving. If it doesn't, you want to make sure you hover over this abort button here, this stop button, because you want to be able to stop it right away if that happens and it's not gone in the right direction. And again, if it's not gone in the right direction, we can go into variable settings and we can reverse down here our homing direction. So if we need to reverse any of these, we can just click it. For instance, if X started going that way, but Y was still going back, we just reverse X and then again resave. So we should be good there. Everything looks good. Just be ready to hit abort if it doesn't go in the right direction. So let's go ahead and hit home all. You can see the Z axis just found the switch. It bumps it. It backs off, bumps it again, makes sure, records that location. And now they're heading back in the right direction. Y is going to hit the limit switch in the back. X is going to hit this limit switch here on the left. Y just hit. Here comes X. That's the noise it makes when both of them are going. That looks great. Everything is set up correctly. We have a fully functioning machine now. Nice job. Okay, so we are getting the software set up, but there is also something else we need to do on the hardware side of things just to make sure. We've done a lot of tweaking to get this machine to where it is and modifications. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna jog the machine forward up to these front hard stop rubber bumpers. And before we do that, we're gonna actually release all 8 of these front screws and let this X-axis find its spacing where it needs to be. And we're also gonna just slowly jog into these rubber bumpers and make sure both Y columns are aligned. Then we'll tighten down the riser plate screws, we'll crack the back ones loose, and we'll do the same thing. So let's go ahead and get into that. All right, so we're gonna crack the front of these riser plates loose, and I just wanna say that this is a one-time thing. We just wanna run through this and make sure the machine is not tweaked in any way, and so everything's running nice and straight. So let's go ahead and crack these loose now. Just need a half a turn. And that looks good. We'll hit the other side now. So let's go ahead and crack these loose a little bit. All right, perfect. Let's move back over to the computer. Okay, so we're back in control and we are ready to jog the machine forward. So let's go ahead and use our X plus and jog out into the middle somewhere. Now, if your machine's jogging really slow, go over here to the jog and make sure you hit reset. It should be jog at 100%. So it should be jogging about that speed. And now we're going to hit Y negative to go back towards 0. Okay, so stop somewhere shy of the bumpers here and then lower your jog speed here to 5. And then go ahead and continue jogging until you see the wheels hit the bumper. And you're going to continue jogging until they're both hitting. The motors will stall out, you hear them click, and then you know you're in the right position. Okay, that's pretty good right there. It popped, and we're going to call that good. Going to go ahead and take our driver, and we're going to tighten these back up while this is sitting in this position. All right, we're going to crack loose the 8 screws for the back riser plates now. The same exact thing we did here. Once we crack these loose, we're jogging the whole gantry back. Now, when we do jog it back this time, we don't want to hit the limit switch, so we'll just leave it shy, and we'll come back and just tighten those in. But for now, let's just crack them loose. All right, so those screws are loose, so let's go back to control. We'll jog the gantry to the back and we'll tighten them in place. Okay, so we're gonna jog the machine to the back again and just line up the back 2 riser plates with the X-axis. So we're gonna hit Y in the plus direction. Oh, we need to turn up our jog. So we can go ahead and hit reset. That'll bring it back up to 100. There we go. That's a good position. We'll go back around the back of the machine and tighten our riser plates back into place. Let's jump back to the computer. Okay, so at this point, we are ready to set up our first cut. So we're gonna jump over to OpenBuilds CAM. So again, navigate over to openbuilds.com under the software tab here. If you scroll down, OpenBuilds CAM. This is online software, so it's really a link. So if you click the link, it will open up in your browser. And you can see what we have set up here. First thing we wanna do is click on the settings tab here and click the settings gears over here. We want to pick if you scroll down, you want to pick the OpenBuilds lead machine, and in the context, you want to pick lead 1010, and then you want to make sure that the lead 1010 plasma add-on is checked. Go ahead and hit save, and you can see that it's changed now. We can rotate this around. We're going to go back to the project tab at the top here, and then we're going to hit load example project. So if you scroll down, there's a plasma hello world. If you click that, we have a little wrench guy here that you will also get a chance to bend these tabs up, and you can hang him on the wall and he can hold things around your shop. It's pretty cool. So for this cut, just to go over a little bit, you have inside cuts, you have outside cuts. So it's got a little bit of everything in here, and these are the cuts right here on the side. We could turn them on and off to show you. This is our inside cuts. These are all the holes. And last but not least, we have our outside cut. So all that looks really good. We can hit generate G-code here, and then we can hit save G-code. Go ahead, click save and do save as, and put it wherever you want. I've got him saved right here. I'm just gonna save right over top of it again. That's great. Now we have the G-code saved. Let's go ahead and jump back into control, and we'll load that G-code. So we'll click open. Open that up, and there he is. Okay, looks good. Let's go ahead and go back to the machine, and we'll set up our material. All right, guys, so we're gonna do our first cut. I have a piece of material here that is 8 inches by 24 inches, and the design is about 10 inches long by 6 inches wide, so we have plenty of room here. It runs this way. This is 16th inch galvanized steel. You can pick it up anywhere. I got this one at Lowe's, but scrapyard, whatever. This is a great piece for an example test cut that we're working on today. All right, so to get started, we're gonna jog the machine torch tip over to the bottom left corner of the material, and we're gonna go back to the PC, and we're gonna start a test air cut just to make sure everything's where it needs to be. All right, so let's go back into control here, and again, we're gonna jog our machine back to the front bottom left corner here, and then I'm going to jog the X into the negative, so it should come towards me. That looks good. I'm actually going to flip this piece of steel around because I've already blown a hole through here, and I'm going to jog the Z down a little. Whoa, that's really fast. I'm going to lower my jog speed now that I'm getting this close. Okay, let me jog down just to see where I am. That's pretty good, but just somewhere in that vicinity, I'm gonna lift the Z back up so I can see where I'm at. That looks really good. Now, over here in control, what we wanna do at this point is click on set 0. So that'll be our starting point. You can see the tool shows up here at 0, 0, and this represents our material out here. So it'll cut out into this direction. So that looks really good. Let's go ahead and do a test air cut. Make sure your plasma cutter's turned off, everything's off. It will jog down and touch the material, and then it will do an air cut about 1.5 millimeters above the material. So we can keep an eye on it, just see how it goes, make sure that it fits in the material and everything is working properly. So let's go ahead and go up to run job. Remember, you can abort at any time. Anything goes wrong, you can stop it. So let's go ahead and hit run job. It should jog down. When it triggers the probe, you'll hear it click, and then it'll start the cut. At this point, your air would have turned on, your plasma cutter would have engaged, and it would have done that first circle cut. Right now, would have pierced through and would be cutting. Right now it's cutting out the OpenBuilds gear logo. And we'll just go ahead and speed this up, and we can watch the air cut take place. All right, so we just finished the air cut. Nice job. Let's go ahead and move on to cutting the real thing. Okay, so what we want to do is just move our gantry out of the way, move the torch and everything. So make sure that the torch is up, which it is. And then we're going to just jog the Y back. Whoops, let me reset to a faster jog rate. There we go. We'll just move it out of the way so we can set up the material for the real cut. Okay, that looks good. All right, guys, so we're ready to do our real world test cut. So I've gone through and I'm setting up my material, and I've moved my material back a couple inches away from the edge of the water pan there. And also I wanted to share, I've got these little bar magnets. Now the torch doesn't do anything as far as like pushing the metal around like a router would, but at the same time there is air coming out of the tip that could push things around. There's warping that happens. So I found these little bar magnets and I thought these are really cool because they hook onto the slats and they hook onto underneath the material. Just hold it in place while it's working. So one thing to make sure is you don't want these to get cut, so make sure they're out of the way of the cut area. So that looks cool, definitely on there good. Let's move on to the next step. As we have our material set up, we are good to go. We're gonna switch over to the air compressor and the plasma, get them dialed in and get ready for this cut. All right guys, so we're down here with the air compressor and the plasma cutter. We're cutting 16 gauge steel, so we want our plasma cutter to be dialed up to 30 amps. And we have a chart for that. We can show you guys and you can download it as a resource. 30 amps for this, and also our compressor. We have a regulator here, but I actually like to use the regulator on the plasma so I know exactly what's coming out of the tip. I have a little button here to turn on the air, and I can see what's coming out of the tip and I can adjust it right here. But actually we're pretty good because we're at 50 right now, so that's awesome. All right, so we're all set up. Let's move on to the next step. All right guys, so we are about to fill up the water tray. If you have a water tray, make sure that everything around the area is splash proof, because when the plasma cuts, it's shooting air out of the tip and it splashes water everywhere. It's not too crazy, but it's crazy enough that if there's any electronics around there, you definitely don't want them in the vicinity. So make sure you do your best to make sure the electronics are all sealed and out of the way and waterproof. All right guys, so we just finished filling up the water tray, and I filled it up to about where the indents are on the slats. I've also taken the bucket that I filled with and I put it in the back here. This particular water tray has a valve with a hose bib on it, so I can actually plug a hose into it and run it down into that bucket. And as the water gets dirty, I can open up that valve and just empty it out into the bucket and then refill new water in there and freshen everything up. So it's a pretty cool setup. All right, so let's move on to the next step. The plasma cutter throws a ton of spark, so you want to make sure you check your surrounding areas. There's nothing flammable around. Make sure you protect your eyes with some plasma cutting glasses. Also fire extinguishers, fire blanket, gloves. It's your responsibility to follow the torch manufacturer's recommended safety guide. So make sure you do that and make sure you keep yourself safe while you're doing this. Plasma cutting's really fun, but you have to make sure safety first. So with all that said, let's go ahead and jump into this. All right guys, here we go. Simple checklist. Make sure your grounding clamp is on. Make sure your plasma is set to 30 amps. Make sure you have 50 PSI coming out of the tip. Check your surroundings one last time, and let's do this. Okay, so first thing we want to do is jog our machine back up to the front left corner. I've got a magnet in there, so I don't want to get too close to I don't want to cut through the magnet. So I'm just going to get right about there, and then I'm going to scoot it over a little. I've got plenty of room to work with. And that looks good. I'm going to zero out the machine. You can see our tool head is there, and we are ready to do our cut. You want to grab your glasses, put them on, and we're going to hit run. All right, so we just finished our first cut. It looks pretty good. Let's check it out. I've got these pliers and you can just tap on it, break anything loose. Okay, that never happens on the first try, but it's already cooled down. That is a good cut. It's got a little slag on the back, but it's not bad at all. That looks really cool. All right, let's clean it up. These are really nice pliers to have because it helps to take off any of this slag. You can kind of just twist it when you grab it, and you can see it comes right off. It's almost like bits of charcoal. Just go around and clean the edges off. All right, so we've knocked a lot of this off. Now we're gonna take it out and hit it with the sander. All right, so we've sanded it a little bit. You can kind of see it's really turned out nice. Look how good these holes turned out. The whole edge, everything looks really nice. I still have to hit the back with the grinder and sand that down, but that's a great first cut. All right, guys, we just finished our project on the Lead 1010 plasma add-on, and it is awesome. Functional project. We'll go hang it up on the wall and check it out.